Hello, everyone. Welcome to another series of webinars about performance and software automation. I'm Rodrigo Moutinho, and it's a pleasure to have our special guest here today. He's a member of ACM and British Computer Society, have lots of certifications, and he's a senior quality engineer at Red Hat. And recently, after the webinar with Jean, a common friend of us, Eder Ignatovic, introduced Tiago to me, and I felt very happy for such expert guy on the software automation field here. So welcome, Tiago Vieira. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So let's get started with a little bit. So could you tell us a little bit about your background on the software industry?
Yeah, sure. So I have around 17 years of professional experience. I started my career as my own company, but it was in a software industry. It was in the printing business side with the family history. As soon as I get my computer science, I moved to the UK, 2005. And that was when my career in the software industry started. So I worked a lot with startups. I work with large companies. So I built my career in the UK. And after 11 years in the UK, I tried to move to Brazil. I stayed in Brazil for 1 year. But then Red Hat hired me. I moved back to the UK, and I'm in the US, in the Westford office, close to Boston.
Awesome. That's pretty cool career. So the thing that I always like to ask is what maybe it's your biggest nightmare that you ever had when you were doing like the manual steps and deployments at the beginning of your career, considering that you have the most more than 15 years of career. So do you have any special cases?
Oh yeah, definitely. I have a lot of cases in my past. I like to remember a few of the cases, when we start writing a lot of scripts for automating builds and automating ETLs with the data transformation between data centers. We sometimes we are not very careful with the things that we write, right? So kind of using a lot of sudos and rm-rf, remove everything from some folders here and there. So I remember once I was doing an ETL, and I had to make the transformation between prod and stage, so we could use the data from stage, so we could use for testing. And by mistake, I revert the order. So I had a very empty database, and by mistake, I moved everything into the production. So the whole system went down because we had no data in there. Yeah, that was a little bit of a nightmare because backups were not very frequent. So yeah, I remember spending a lot of time fixing the problem using old backups. But yeah, and during the 15 years of career, there's a lot of these small mistakes you do with automations. But yeah, luckily I never had any issue. I remember once I was working for a bank, and I was in the research department in one of the DevOps teams in the bank. He run again an ETL, right? So transforming data from one data center to other, and he also ran the same problem. He just moved, and we start watching data centers across continents being deleted. But luckily, in Australia, we could stop the data, the ETL, and revert it back to other data centers in the banks. But yeah, you see a lot of mistakes like that. So my nightmares are usually this automation. When are not carefully done, these things happens. So we need to be very careful.
Yeah, do you have any special advices for avoiding? Because yeah, this is the sudo thing. It's like a very common thing at the beginning. Do you have any special advice to avoid this sudo and like a better way to try these things?
Oh yeah, definitely. So with the experience that I was getting, committing my mistakes, I learned how to stay in the user space, right? So I work with Linux all the time, and we know the less you touch the system side, the system, the general files in the system, the better. So I've, with a lot of experience in different languages like Python, for example, I learned how to effectively use virtual env, install libraries locally, and run everything locally and inside of the user space. So be mindful when you start writing scripts that makes changes that you believe could harm your system. Make sure you stay in the user system, in the user space, because if you commit a mistake, you're not going to lose too much. You're not going to lose your system. But yeah.
At least you get access denied before deleting a special folder.
Yeah.
Yeah. So getting to this point that you just said about doing the automation on the good way. For you, what is the importance of having a continuous integration and continuous delivery?
So today I like to mention a lot about the State of DevOps report that is being produced for the past years. So if you look at the software deliveries today, you need to be very agile in the market, right? The more we advance, the more innovations we see, the faster you have to start delivering your software. And CI/CDs, these practices are very common in the technology companies today. And I see it as one of the tools that help your team to be very successful delivering the best product to the customers. So the State of DevOps, they have four major points that in the past years I try to adopt when I'm working with the teams in CI/CD, right? So you have the deployment frequency. So how many times you I wouldn't say deployment in companies like Red Hat where I work, because here you have products that are very, very, you need to be very careful when deploying, because you have very big enterprise companies that expect you the top of qualities of the product. And I usually say delivery, right? Because deployment, you deliver that software to the customer. And delivery, I would say building from source to the product, being ready for you to start testing and run all your tests. So the State of DevOps has the deployment frequency. So I'm trying to be as fast as possible when creating scripts to make sure that developers have a fast feedback for all the commits that they add to the source code. So we have lead time for change. So it's the same thing. So we're trying to speed up the change from when they send a PR to get the product built, so ready for test. We also pay attention to the time of restore service. I don't work with online services, but it's very important for you to have this, to be able to respond to any problems that your live system has. So a very standardized and methodical and systematic way of building products help you to have a fast restore service. And then you have the change failure rate, which is how many fixes you need to do for each PR. So trying to decrease that, right? So if you have a very consistent and standardized way of building software, you have less problems to fix, right? So you don't cause too many problems. So these are the 4 points that I usually use on the CI/CD when I'm building with the team, and it's very, very important to get an agile methodology, for example, applied to a project.
Awesome. I I don't know if I think you mentioned it. I think that the main point is like the quick feedback that you can get from this whole process comparing to a really manual process that you have lots of steps and you can commit lots of mistakes, right?
Yeah. Oh, so exactly. So I like to, if you look at academic papers talking about the CI/CD practice, they also divided they split the concept of continuous deployment and continuous delivery, right? So we have first the CI, which helps us validate code, make sure that the code is in the standard that the team defined. You also run your unit tests as frequently as possible, so you make sure that whatever change happens, you won't break the code. But you have this continuous delivery of the software, so it's make sure that the software is ready and ready to be deployment, and continuous deployment, right? Many companies outside are doing continuous deployment. If I'm not wrong, if you look at GitHub, for example, they do I don't know how many dozens or even hundreds of deployments every day in live, right? In live product. We don't do this live deployments here, Red Hat, at least with the products I worked before, because of this. There's a very strict way of deploying software in production at Red Hat to make sure that enterprise receive, a very enterprise grade product. But I usually stay inside of the CI for the integration and for the continuous delivery to make sure that the build is ready to be deployed at any time.
Awesome. I will all get the full context that you just introduced here on the interview. And you said to me that you work on, that you lead the team for the Red Hat Istio team. So could you tell more about what is this project is, the Istio project?
Yeah, sure. So Istio is the community project, upstream project created by Google, Red Hat, IBM, Pivotal, and other companies. It's a service mesh management framework. So people that are deploying service mesh on top of Kubernetes, for example, they have all the infrastructure of delivery of deployment. The deployment problems. Many of the deployment problems that happened before Kubernetes came to solve, but there are some problems into the deployment of the apps on top of this infrastructure. And service mesh management, the Istio project, came to solve this type of problems. So Red Hat, as everyone knows, Red Hat has all the products at Red Hat all the products at Red Hat are based on open source projects. And Istio it's the same. We are based on this upstream project, so we bring Istio in-house. We make sure that it works well and integrated well with OpenShift. And the product is still not released. We have a GA release scheduled soon. But this is the project I'm leading all the quality efforts on that, including bridging the continuous integration with upstream and the product being built in Red Hat.
Could you tell us just a little bit what the basic is? What is the service mesh for the ones that have no idea what is about it?
Oh yeah, sure. So think about in the past where we usually have that big web application running on web servers. For you to make a deployment of those services were very, very hard, because you have, I don't know, hundreds of services running those web apps, and because the web apps are so big, you have kind of big monolith thing. You used to have a lot of problems with that. So with the advent of the container space coming to the market, and in getting infrastructure applications like Kubernetes to handle your infrastructure, things start becoming very easy for you to break that down, that monolith application in small services, right? So you get a monolith, you break that down in very small services for different concerns that your app have, and you break that in services. So a service mesh is a group of services that do specific jobs for your application. Yeah, so basically this is what services is. Service mesh is just a group of microservices working and communicating with each other to produce the app that you want, the solution you want.
Awesome. And you're telling all this great information here, and so this is a very big project. So behind the scenes, how is the CI/CD works on the Istio project, this kind of project?
Right. So if you look at upstream Istio project, you have a quite consistent process of continuous integration and delivery. So every PR that goes into the GitHub project, there's a bunch of tests that run, validations and tests that run on that PR you created. And if everything is fine, people go there and say, looks good to me, and that PR is merged inside of the main project. And then every day you have a daily build. For the project here, what we do is it's almost exactly the same that happens upstream. Apart from Istio is very tied today. Well, the tests of Istio were very tied to Kubernetes. And for us to validate and productize Istio Red Hat, you kind of repeat the same process, right? So for every PR you receive, you run your tests internally. But there are some changes that we need to do in terms of security contexts, for example, that OpenShift requires for us to run. So our CI/CD is exactly like that. So every PR we receive, we run the tests internally with OpenShift instances and clusters. And you froze. Can you hear me?
Yep, it's
okay.
My internet sometimes just breaking here. I'm monitoring, but sometimes when I froze, I will get back. At least I wish.
So we kind of repeat the same thing that in upstream, but internally we run with OpenShift to ensure that our product it's ready to ship on top of OpenShift. The other thing that with that we have some additional tests that we need to run with OpenShift. So we write these tests and run through the continuous integration, and we deliver internally so other people can use and test Istio.
Great, very cool. Consider there is an open source project, a very big one. So what is the challenge that your team have to maintain and to evolve this such a big project?
Right. So the Istio is it's part of a project what we call Maistra, right? The code name is Maistra. It's the OpenShift service mesh. So within the OpenShift service mesh, you have different other projects that depends on Istio. The big challenge we face with this new when you get a new project from upstream and you start productizing it, it's getting all the communications being set correctly. So because Istio is the base for the other projects that depends on Istio, we need to be very consistent in the way that we build the application. So the challenge, for example, is to make sure that we have stable builds all the time, so other teams that are based on Istio can use those stable builds to test their applications. We currently have a message event, well, event-driven system here that once builds are done, we send a message. So everyone that is listening to that bus, they usually get that build and start running their tests. But yeah, communication is one of the biggest challenges we have to make sure that everyone is on the same pace.
Yeah, for sure. That there's a big challenge, and during all this time, do you have any lesson learned to share working on the Istio project?
Yeah. Well, first is how you integrate such as innovative and this is bleeding edge technology. How you integrate with some of the legacy workflows you have in the company, because Red Hat have very reputable and reliable deployment systems for enterprise applications. We have some legacy workflows that are very we have strict ways of following it. So I would say one of the first thing is don't make sure that you understand all these legacies and how you can integrate this innovative systems into your process. Make sure your communications are always clear and you communicate with the developers that you work with, right? You need to find a method, because every upstream project follows a sort of a pattern how they develop the code, and we usually try to mirror some of that into the teams that we work with, so we don't kind of go too much out of the way that they develop the apps. But at the same time, you have these workflows that you need to adapt to make sure your software follows all the standards that the company creates. Yeah, just make sure you understand the process, you understand the standards, look at for the project and see every point you need to change to adapt to that workflow in the company. This, I would say, that it's the first step you would do to get such a project in the company.
Very cool. I will try just to pick your brain, like you're saying all these great things here. So what is the main tool that you use daily regarding all these automation things, and why you use each of them? So
one of the tools that I use is Jenkins, right? I don't know, everything when I talk about automation, Jenkins is one of the first things that comes to my mind. I've been experienced with Jenkins since 2009, 2010, and it's been very helpful for every automation project I work with. So Jenkins is one thing. I use a lot of Bash script, and Python also helps a lot with the scripts for automation. What else? I would say Jenkins is the main tool, and programming language, right? Anything, it doesn't matter if you are building Java or if you're building Golang or if you're building Python applications. If you are comfortable, for example, with Python scripts, like I am very comfortable with Python scripts, you choose that language, and all the scripts you create goes with that. I'm also old school with Linux, right? So Bash is it's a very good friend of mine. So every day I write some Bash scripts to help with that. And then I just get Jenkins, get my jobs, and run all those scripts through that platform.
Awesome. Consider the Jenkins the main tool. Do you have any favorite technology on the automation field?
No, I would say Python. Python, it's a great language for you to automate your process. So that's my favorite tool. Yeah,
great. I also I love Jenkins. I'm I'm using since like last year on the transition from Java to DevOps side and things like this. And I also use Ansible. Do you like Ansible? You have tried Ansible, things like this?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I started doing configuration management back, I don't know, a few years ago, and the tool I started was Puppet. But then since Ansible was released, and I start getting familiar with Ansible, that was my tool of choice. So environments, when we build environments here, we have a lot of Ansible scripts that help us to ensure environments are very consistent when we're testing. But yeah, you also have IDEs, right? Good IDEs today. If you look at Microsoft Code, I use a lot of the PyCharm, the JetBrains app. So it has a lot of integration with your tools for automation, and I like to use those IDEs as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I like the way of Ansible because Bash script, it's fine. It's easy to learn as a developer. You just get some easy things, but the Ansible thing on the idempotent trying to do this thing, not creating some very complex scripts. I think Ansible just get everything on a YAML file. So simple. Yeah. I really like the approach that they have.
And with containers now, I've been using a lot of containers in the past year or two to create some environments for running tests and running builds. Right today, you can get everything you need for a specific project, to build a specific project and run the tests. You can put inside of a container image, and you can run that everywhere. So I usually put everything in a container, create a container for development of a specific project, and I can give that container image away to all the developers, all the testers, so they have consistency to run the builds and run their tests. So containers are today it's something that we work every day with it for automations.
Just frozen. I think I'm back now.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, I just saw that. Oh my God, my internet is gone. So just the final question for you. What is your best advice for those that want to automate their software delivery and avoid the dependence of that hero developer, the ones that is the guy that the only one that knows how to deploy the system?
Yeah. I used to hear a lot when I was in the UK. Usually my managers used to come to me and say, what happens if a bus go over you today? And it was kind of, this is really weird to think, but that's very important, right? What happens if something happens to me today, and all that work that Red Hat is investing, for example, on me, what happens to all that work? So first of all, I would say to get an automation, because automation is very systematic, right? For when you want to build a tool, for every tool you have all the steps you need to follow to get that tool built, that software built. It's very systematic. So organization, it's the key point. Make sure you understand all the steps you do. Draw the process. You say, you need to do this. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Draw that process. Put that in a wall. And when you start automating, you go step by step. It doesn't need to be big. It doesn't need to be the best of the scripts you write. Just make sure that every step is scriptable, I would say, with lots of parameters, right? When I go to Jenkins and I'm creating a Jenkins job, first I get that Jenkins, that huge, many lines of code. But then after that, I start breaking the Jenkins jobs in small jobs with a lot of parameters. Doing that, you can keep consistency in your process, and it's easier for you to integrate other jobs and talk to each other on that. The other thing, in addition to the organization, the other thing is communication, right? You need to communicate with the whole team. The whole team needs to do all the time what you're doing, because sometimes it's easy for you to think in the past jobs you had, you kind of used to a very specific process of how to build a software, how to deliver that software. But every team is different. Every workflow that the team uses is different. So make sure you understand what is the workflow that your team is using to build that software. Communicate with the developers to ensure that when they're doing their development, they're building the software exactly the same as you build in your test environment or in your delivery environment. So if you want to make sure that if it works on their machine, it works on everywhere. So how to do that is communication. Make sure you talk. Make sure everyone knows what you're doing. Make sure that you ask questions, how things are going. Make sure that don't be as open as possible, but don't go as open as well to make open for discussion that never ends. So so the communication, it's a very important piece. Also, when you create the workflow, you're going to be using tools that maybe not be very familiar to the developers. So create stuff that other people can use, right? Don't give them something that's going to be hard for them to use, because developers will kind of maybe go for an easier way that they know how to do it. So if that happens, the standard on how the software is built is going to be different for everyone. So make sure you make easy tools for them to use. And I like to say, one thing that I like to say to everyone is it's forget the perfect thing, right? You sometimes delay a lot of your projects or a lot of your scripts because you're shy, because someone is going to look at that script and say, oh, this is rubbish, or this is bad. There's no rubbish script. There's always a different way for you to do stuff. So what you do is usually create things. Don't worry about perfecting your script before you deliver. Go step by step, create that, and then once you have the whole workflow working, then you can go back to your steps and ensure that you make you can kind of polish your scripts and make them easy to read, easy to use, and then as much as you go along with those scripts, you can make them better.
Yeah, a good friend of mine, Bruno Souza, likes to say that the perfectionist don't deliver things. So exactly. I just got his mantra of done is better than perfect. So I'm just trying everything every time to make it complete, make it done, instead of, oh, I need to be perfect, something like this.
Yeah, and when you start in a new team, usually you are shy for writing the script to say, oh, people are going to think about bad stuff about this script that I wrote. No, definitely not. Whatever you write, if you just make sure it works, and then once it works and you have the workflow running okay, then we can just go and start improving the script and make it more efficient, or make sure that you can avoid a lot of errors in there. Don't be shy. This is very important.
Yeah, sure. So we are wrapping up the interview. So do you have any final thoughts? Something that you want to share to promote?
Oh yeah. First, I would like to say, go open source, right? Not because I'm a big Red Hat fan and I'm employed by Red Hat, because everything here is open source, but I always been in the open source space, and the more you get involved in open source projects, the more you learn, right? You can collaborate with people, with different types of people. You learn a lot with very experienced people that are in the open source space for a long time. Open source is the way. You have a lot of tools in the State of DevOps 2018. One of the things that they're coming is companies that use open source tools. They're very likely to go towards to the very high performance companies. It's proven that this is the space for you to be in. Containers are very important. Everything today is going through the containerization process, right? It's easy for you to run everywhere. You have very stable platforms today running containers. Make sure your application is containerized. Make sure your process make the best use of containers. That way, it's easy for you. If you lose one of the environments, you can bring up another environments for automation using containers. So I would say if you start from zero, go and learn containers and start using containers. And one thing I usually say to people, and this is very weird to say, but for many years, I've been telling people that I'm automating myself out of a job. When people say, what do you do for work? I say that I automate myself out of a job. In first instance, people think, well, if we're going to automate all your work you do, you're going to become redundant, right? People will just fire you. But think about that. I never had a problem automating a lot of work I do. It always created more work to me, right? Companies like that. It makes the process more efficient. And at the same time, you start learning more things and you start working on different things. So automate yourself out of a job. Make sure everything is automated, because the pace that the innovation and the technology companies are going today, you need to be efficient. You need to create quality products. Otherwise, the competitors will go over you. So yeah, make sure you automate everything.
Yeah, I love this one, because this is, I think it's the main the main reason that people avoid to automate things, because I'm gonna lose my job. But it's just what you said. We can deliver much more automating things. So yeah.
If you do that, you're gonna have a lot of job, right? Don't worry about it. If you do this kind of things, this brings a lot of value into the company, and the company, and make sure that the company will always want you. So yeah.
Absolutely. So man, thanks a lot, Tiago. It was really good to have you here. It's a very good interview. And guys, if you want to know more about software automation and avoid having this hero developer, as we are discussing here on your team, subscribe to cyborgdeveloper.tech, and you'll receive great content and notification for the upcoming interviews. So I think that's it. So see you guys next time. Bye-bye, Tiago.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you.